But boy, it has like kicked off and taken off and going quick.
Yeah, we didn't have much of a transition. It went straight from cold to 80-degree weather,
Yes,
it seems
it
like.
did.
And then it got cold again.
Yeah.
So.
It got warm enough to make the grass grow like a hayfield. And
Yeah,
Yes.
because what is it? Somebody said something earlier that the almanac says that we're still in for one more cold snap, I think.
Yeah.
If
And they're
you're-
talking, I saw some weather this morning that like the very first part of May, those first 4 to 5 days is when we're going to see it get cold again.
Not May. That's
So we
the
got to
big
get to Mother's Day, and then we're
Speedway
in the
won't be able to
safe
get out and practice, and we need warm weather.
There you go. All right. Well, guys, let's talk. You want to start with 4-H, Nora?
Sure, why not?
Okay. What we got going on?
Everything. We're fully in it for fair prepping. Big ones right now. So getting animals tagged. So we don't have a deadline anymore in 4-H of enrollment. So it used to always be May 15th. So that May 15th date is still there, but it's for livestock kids only. So if you are showing livestock, you have to have everything in 4-H online by May 15th. So it's all of your animal information, identifiers, weights, tag numbers, all of that fun stuff. That still has to be in by May 15th. But if you are just someone that wants to sign up to do like an arts and crafts project, you technically have pretty much until the start of the fair to sign up now, which, is it's very stressful, kind of crazy to think about, but it definitely kind of opens the window for more youth to get involved in the program a little bit later on. So
that's got to be, though, just a little bit hard on your end to try to plan and organize when you can continuously have.
Yes, which our big one is Fair Entry, so that's our second platform that we use, and that opens June 1st and it goes through June 15th, and that is where everyone puts in what they're actually bringing. So that really is our true, like, we know we're going to have X amount of, like, arts and crafts projects, or, like, X amount of, like, Legos are coming. So we kind of get a better idea during that time frame of how much we're actually going to have. But 4-H Online is still a good kind of guesstimate on that, because when you sign up on that platform, it's just saying I want to take this project. It's not saying I'm going to bring this many necessarily, which for the most part we kind of can, but arts and crafts we break out because we have county-based projects. So the way the state has it is it's just arts and crafts. So it kind of limits youth to only be able to bring in one project, where we keep them separated out as county projects. So like ceramics and scrapbooking and
specific,
all of those specifics fall under that, but we allow kids to do ceramics, scrapbooking, all of those still.
Gotcha.
Instead of just having to select one. So that fair entry is really kind of that important piece for figuring out how many of those projects are actually coming.
How much space is needed,
so livestock is really kind of the big one that we're hitting right now. Sheep and goat, they're getting tagged Saturday. So that's from 9 to 11 at the fairgrounds. So our beef have already been tagged. Sheep and goat get tagged this Saturday. And then not next Saturday, but the following, I think it's like May 8th and 9th. Will be swine. So swine, we do not bring the actual animal. They just come in and pick up their tags. So we do that on that Friday evening from 5 to 7. And then that Saturday we do rabbit and poultry. So that's like tattooing, blood testing, tagging, banding.
Lots of work to that.
That barn I'm so thankful for, because they just roll, like, they handle everything, and I just show up and look pretty.
There
like
you go.
It is,
that's all you got.
It is a great deal because I know very little of that world, and all of our leaders do a fantastic job when it comes to the livestock. They truly are their experts, and when people call, I'm like, you are more than welcome to talk to our leaders, because I cannot answer that question because that's not my world, but it's rolling. We're in the organized chaos of the season.
How are the numbers as far as?
We're about right on track for where we usually are. So we're kind of in that 300 to 400 mark for our regular 4-Hers, so the youth that are in grades 3 through 12. We're about 70-ish on our mini 4-Hers, so kindergarten through second graders. And then we have around 50-ish volunteers that are enrolled right now.
Oh, that's great.
So that is pretty good. So our volunteer number is still a little low. We're usually closer to that 75 mark, but it kind of ebbs and flows. But otherwise, our numbers are still right on track,
Holding
looking
on.
really good.
So as far as the volunteers, do you have like certain areas that you really need some help, and what is the criteria to be a volunteer with the program?
Yeah. So we will never turn down volunteers, especially this year with all the changes with the new building and everything. It's going to be kind of chaotic. So we definitely could use people. Just the week of the fair, we could use people to take over some clubs, because we do have some clubs that don't have leaders right now, so they're not meeting. So we need those, just general volunteers. I know I think there's 5 or so people that'll actually be going off of our council in the fall. So if that's something you're interested in. So pretty much all positions for volunteers are open at the moment. Super simple process. You just go on to 4-H online and create your own profile, and you sign up just kind of like a 4-H'er signs up for the program. You just enroll as an adult, and then we get a notification. Then we do a background check. You put in some references, we reach out to those, and you're pretty much ready to roll. So it's a pretty painless
Pretty cool
process, pretty quick and easy.
And you can give as much or as little time as you want.
Yep, absolutely. So we have some people that are just project volunteers. We have some that are just on council. We have some that, just do like livestock, club leader. I mean, we have definitely an array of volunteers. I mean, if you're interested even, so this year for 4-H camp, it's a little bit different. We really had to lock in on our volunteers because Purdue has come down on youth protections of we have to have so many adults to kids. So we've kind of been hunting. So 4-H camp sounds like something you'd really want to do. We could use extra volunteers for that too. And so.
And 4-H camp, now let's talk a little bit about where it's at. And because I hear it's a blast. I mean, it's been many, many years since I went to 4-H camp, but I hear the current one is pretty fun.
Absolutely love 4-H camp. So it is at Camp Higher Ground, which is just south of St. Leon there, so between St. Leon and West Harrison. So super nice facility. So it's typically the first week of June. So there's kind of different things for all the ages of kids. So if you're in grades 3 through 7, you're just like a regular camper. So you truly are going and just enjoying all of it. If you're in grades 8 through 12, you get to kind of help a little bit more. So you get different roles where you get to be leaders and counselors, and you kind of have a different interaction with those younger kiddos. But it is a week long. So the first couple days, the older kids are just there. So we do like kayaking with them. They do a lot of prep for camp. So they will make decorations for the bunks and kind of just a lot of prepping. Those first couple days happen. And then when the campers come in, they do classes in the morning. So we as educators and volunteers put together different classes that go on theme with whatever it is that year for camp. And then in the afternoon, they have some free time, and then we usually do some type of guest speaker. So I know in years past, like they've brought in like the sheriff's department or the fire department. I know last year they tried to bring in like Lifeline, but the weather did not work out, so we weren't able to do that one. They've had magicians. They've had the mobile aquarium.
I think they had a football player a few years ago. And,
So, like, definitely, like, motivational type speakers. And it tries, again, to be kind of on theme. I know, so the theme this year is, like, 4-H through the decades. So they've even talked about doing, like, mounted riding and, like, all kinds of stuff, like, just to find things from different decades. And so it's a really neat experience for the kids. And then the last day of camp is kind of more fun rotation. So they have like a water day, and they get to practice their skits that they do together that they show their parents when they come to pick them up. So it's a really neat experience for the kids, and it's a week long, and it's a week long experience. You are busy from like 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. It is long days, but well worth it.
Good busy.
Yeah.
So is there a fee associated with that?
There is a fee. So it changes a little bit each year. So it's been roughly like $230, but our council actually covers half of that. So this year it was $115 to go to camp. And that gets you your t-shirt, your food. That covers everything for that whole week.
So do your adult volunteers pay too?
So this year, because it was such a last minute change, so in the past I've been the only one from our county is like an educator that has gone because they've not really cracked down. So this year I told our volunteers that council would cover it, because we also did receive a grant to help cover some cost of camp, so it should help cover theirs as well. But yes, I asked council to cover our volunteers that will be going as well.
Sure.
Because I'm not going to ask an adult to take a week off of work and then have to
pay
to go
Sure.
on top of it. So just with how it kind of worked out. So that is something where, yes, if you're a volunteer that's looking to go, definitely want to work with you to not make you have to pay, because I'm not going to ask someone to take off of work
Sure.
and then
Yeah.
pay when you're
Pay to
volunteering
take a little
your time.
vacation.
Yeah.
So with the 4-Hers that want to go to camp, is there any kind of scholarship or anything for some that may not be able to afford it at all?
So every year as council, we try to reach out and get donations or grant money to cover costs. So if you are in that situation, just reach out to us in the office and we can talk to council and see if we can find funding to cover all of it, because we've had that happen before, and that's perfectly fine. If that's something you really want to do, like, I don't want the fee to stop you by any means. So just reach out. We're always willing to look to see if we can find or do something to cover all of that cost, so a youth can still participate.
Very good. All right. Well, it's busy times.
Yes.
So what's the number one project? The biggest, most popular, largest group signed up for?
You know, I haven't really broke it out by project recently. For static projects, I would probably say, I'm just guessing, and Christopher might have a better guess, I don't know. Arts and crafts is probably, because there's so many that it can be divided out into. And then honestly, livestock-wise is probably, in the big barn, going to be goats. That project has really exploded here. But I know our rabbit project is also pretty large. Yeah. And even poultry. I mean, I did just pull numbers for them, and there's like 60 some kids in the goat project, like about 60 in the beef, and then I think close to 60 or so that are signed up right now in like rabbit and stuff as well.
Really?
So honestly,
I have
they're
to
all
say,
they're all booming.
I love the rabbits just because I just love them. A rabbit, I used to have them when I was a kid, raised them, and they're soft and fluffy, and their noses wiggle, and they're just cute, you know. But
they are very cute.
But one thing I love is when the rooster crows in the building down there. I think that just kind of sets the tone for the fair, you know.
It does.
Yeah. So.
Showing rabbits just really like intrigues me too, of how they just like flip them around. In the boxes.
And they're just
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Oh my.
But yeah, it's
Rabbit stores.
booming. Enrollment is
good,
moving right along, and yeah, we're in the organized chaos.
There you go. You guys, we do want to let everybody know, if they didn't, the new building, your offices have moved.
Yes, we are fully there.
Yep, we are in and still trying to kind of get things organized and on the office side of things, and we have very few items in the old office that will move over with us, that we need to get hung up and different things. But yeah, we're in it. So the new address is 822 South County Road 200 West versus the 545. So if you do come, it's just
corner, aren't you?
Just look for the new white building directly across the street, and that's where we exist at the current time. So it's been a good transition. It's been something. There's been some concessions on our side. We went from a much larger space, square footage wise, to a little bit smaller space, and that comes with some growing pains, I guess. And it's okay though. It's one of those that we're figuring it out. We're learning to be more efficient. We're learning to find new ways to, maybe if we printed something before, is it something that we could be electronic now? And just because there's so many things, even through Purdue and through the county, that used to be paper-based, that now a wet signature in a physical paper can be scanned versus needing to maintain the wet signature. So it's been good. We've been excited to move in and have the opportunity to take over that building. So
kind of a purge and.
Yeah, we went through. I know we've talked on here a couple times. We found all the history. We even found we were going through some old books that were just existing on a shelf that had been there for who knows. And I think the book that I pulled down was copywritten in the 1990. So I just was thumbing through it, just flipping through the pages, and they were project workbooks fell out of them, and one was from 1930. It was in pristine condition for a sewing project. Then there was a book for beef, and it was a steer project from 1933. And then we had
a junior
leader book from 1933 as well. And they were all in mint condition. So flipping through and looking to see, it's always neat to see what it looks like then. Then fast forward to now and how it's changed. The pricing was so funny looking through the sewing project, because it had each individual item that they had to buy for what they sewed. And it was, like thread was, 2 cents. A zipper was 5 cents. Then it was so many yards of fabric was this, and it was just so different, because then the steer was the same, where they bought the steer for, it was like $20.
Yeah, and I think like the sold or like the final price was like $70 or like $115. And it's like, that is so insane. But yeah, like again, I had everything listed out of like, I bought this for like $5 and I put like this in for 10. Like it was a really neat experience. So we're trying to figure out ways that we now, because we're going to try and maintain that stuff in our space, but we don't have a good way to really display it. So we're trying to figure out creative ways that we could display it or scan it and have it available so people could still see it, because that kind of stuff, I know just community members enjoy looking at and seeing. We did come across some other things in the office that we had and at a certain point in time, we probably maintained. There used to be an Indiana Rural Youth. It was a youth group that I'm fairly positive Farm Bureau would partner with certain groups and Extension, and we had a lot of their stuff, so we took it over and provided that to the Farm Bureau board here in the county and said, you can maintain it if you want and keep it or show it off, do whatever, but we don't have a need for it, because I had to ask what Indiana Rural Youth even was, because it wasn't a thing in my time. So yeah, we've discovered all of the history.
I love that, though. I mean, that just kind of gives you a whole different perspective on today.
Yeah. So one of the next big projects that I think we're going to kind of tackle is we've digitized old 8mm film. We've digitized some little slides, the negative slides. But we have quite a few actual pictures that we've printed in the 90s era that are in photo albums, and I would like to digitize those, so we're probably going to try and purchase a flat deck scanner so we can that's a photo quality, so then we can copy those and get those, so those are digitized, and keep those in that regard. So then if we decide to do away with the physical pictures, we will have copies of them still, because there's a full tote of photo albums of various years of shows and projects and parades, and so
thank goodness we have the ability and the equipment to save those kinds of things, because they're just priceless in the big scheme of things.
Oh yeah, it's actually was it last year? And this is prior to us moving. It was so funny. So when you look at the projects that we have now, our static projects, there's a name card, and it tells you the name and like the year and some other information on it for each 4-H'er. Well, Lana came back at this current moment and was laughing and was like, how what a small world. And at a certain point, it was my second year in 4-H, I think, they were changing that, and they were working on sizing and font, and I just happened to be the 4-H'er that they chose to do it. So there's a couple different versions of like what those cards look like, where I had the font and the red ink and all the things. So I actually framed it and hung it in my office, because I was like, oh man, what are the chances of that?
That's exactly.
Because at that time, it was probably a lot more 4-H'ers that were in the program to just randomly choose me. So we have all kinds of stuff like that, and it's important to the county, I think, in my opinion, that we maintain that stuff. It's not anything that people are just going to thumb through every day, but it's a fabric of what created the community. Extension, really, I think people that don't understand Extension don't grasp how important Extension was in the history of all counties, because it taught farmers how to be farmers and how to sow the land, but it also taught wives of the time how to sew fabric and how to cook and clean and
how to make do with what you had, and to teach the kids so many of the skills that they needed to keep
because
on.
4-H at that time as well was very much, it was like 10 projects, and each of those projects were something that was skill-based that you would use on the farm or use as a homemaker. So it was tractor, or it was crop, it was some sort of livestock, or it was sewing, it was cooking.
Butter cakes.
Yeah, and it was very specific to, you will utilize this to rear a family and be a homemaker, or to be a farmer, or be a mechanic, or electrician. It was all very skill-based. So, I mean, Extension, it really developed America in a lot of ways. So it's and now it still does that. It just has a little bit less of an impact, at that level, because then going to a university was very alien. It was, if you did that, you were kind of the oddball out, where the university would come to the communities through the rail line. A lot of times they would bring display cars down, and it would open the side, and they would have a Holstein, and a professor would explain to you, here's how you milk your cow and how you feed and do all the things, and all of the farmers would come and circle around and learn, and that was you going to class, and then you would implement. And
how cool is that?
Be
Though?
more
Can you
successful.
imagine what kind of a community gathering you would have at that? I think that's just
I really
awesome.
cannot.
Yeah, so so it's so we have a lot of that, and it's one of those, like, how do we display, because I want it to be handled as little as possible as well, because you don't want it to get torn up, but
Right.
we want to still share that history and allow people to understand just the significance that Extension is in the community. So yeah, we love the building. I love the building. It's a great asset. It's a great asset to the community. Not only the side with the offices, but the side for the rental space is being utilized all the time.
Now, for the fair this year, 4-H projects will be in there.
Yes, so all of our static projects will be in there, and then I believe a stage is going to get set up in there as well that we can do like public speaking and fashion review, like certificate of distinction, like the crowning of royalty,
How
kind of
nice,
those
yeah.
things. So it'll be really nice that all of it will be under one roof.
And
I am
out of the weather.
excited. Yeah, I'm excited for that. Although, I might have to take a few extra laps around the fairgrounds or something to get my steps up, because I won't have to walk as far as I have in the past. But I'm really excited. It'll be very nice to have it all there in one building. Really excited we were able to actually move electric judging back to the fairgrounds now. So in the past, it's always been done at REMC, because they do a fantastic job with us for that project. So it was like, hey, do we want to move it back? And it's like, that would be great, because transporting those projects is such an adventure.
I think the first year Nora was a 4-H educator, so for those that don't know, so RMC always judges our electric, and they would always do it in their meeting room, which is fine. But as you advance in the project, your projects themselves get larger, because you're either doing a switchboard or you're doing some sort of light. They're larger. So, but at that point, families would leave them, and then because you have to select grand reserve and all the things, so then it would be on us to transport them from that office all the way over to the fairgrounds.
Back to the fairgrounds.
So some years it was really difficult because the projects were large. Well, this particular year there was somebody that took, I think it was an old scythe, and made a light out of it.
Like a lamp, like
a lamp.
Like it was probably as tall as me.
It was a super cool lamp.
It was awesome.
But we were like, how are we? And I was like, you're just gonna have to sit in the back and hold this. And it was even, I think, where the scythe was, the blade was up.
Yeah,
Oh
like
my goodness.
it was very terrifying.
So Nora is in the back of my truck driving down the highway, kind of kneeling, holding this light, and we passed a sheriff just sitting on the side of the road, and I was like, yeah, it's going down. Thankfully, either he knew what was going on, or was like, pass.
I don't even want to
So
touch
many
that.
stories that could go with that one.
So
oh my gosh.
so that's exciting. We're looking forward, and I think it's another opportunity to share with the public too, to give us grace this year with it, because there's so much new with the building that we don't know what we don't know. And whenever we get to the fair, we're going to do our best to display everything, have all of the things ready. And there's going to be things that are going to be stumbling blocks this year, and we know it. But we're going to take those and we're going to run with them, and we're going to figure it out. But we know that, as we go on and we do that, and that's what the council, I know they're working really hard, the 4-H council, to ensure that we are displaying projects and doing the things. But we don't have all of that figured out yet, and that's okay. We'll get there. So
It'll be an experience for everybody.
yep, it'll be here before we know it. I mean,
I
it
know.
just seems like we were just doing stuff in October, and now it's already
I know.
towards the end of April.
Springtime. Lucas, are you a 4-H'er?
Yes, I'm a
Yes.
4-H'er.
Okay.
Attaboy.
What project do you enjoy the most?
Honestly, I quite enjoy photography.
Oh,
That's one of
okay.
my favorites.
That's a good one, yeah.
That's a very popular one, isn't
Yeah, let's say
it?
photography, and especially with the
one, yeah.
because photography was one of the main ones I did through, and we only had 4 categories then. 5 if you did slides, because that used to be one that was you don't
Back
even
in the old
understand
days.
that. Yeah, back in the 1900s. So there were 5 options, but now there's I don't even know how many categories of photography. So
There's
much more.
Quite a few.
Yeah, so which I think is awesome. I mean, that's
Yes.
it's a developing market, and that's one of those that we always have awesome. You know, Dad is a photography judge that travels around, and he, you know, we're a little biased, but he's like, man, it's hard to beat our county. Our county always has really, really good
Beautiful
photography.
displays.
So we're thankful for that. So
very
it'll be here
nice.
before we know it.
It will. All right. Well, what else do we have going on?
So on the health side of things, I am planning out kind of my year at the moment, and I'm getting a lot of requests for our home food preservation stuff throughout the state. Really, we do have some locally planned. Those aren't going to be till the fall time. We don't really have those programs really get popular later towards harvest time, just because then it's going to be fresh for people. So I know I'm scheduling a lot of those. That doesn't mean though, if you are somebody that has questions, please call the office. I would be happy to sit down and walk you through how to do all that stuff.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Because I have on Facebook a couple of different ag groups, women's ag groups that, you know, and one of them is based way like Nebraska, Kansas, Plains. They do a lot of canning of meat.
Yep.
Especially beef.
Yep.
I find, and chicken.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about that, because it's hard for me to wrap my head around. Green beans, okay, but
Sure.
I'm not sure about
So
it.
you can technically can meat. You have to do it with an approved recipe. So, and that's where without having that approved recipe, you can go sideways very quickly with meat. So I know that with chicken, so there's different ways and there's different recipes typically. I know with chicken, you can do it where you're adding a broth at the same time, or there's others where you just add salt to the meat and the meat will actually pull moisture out, and that will be what you're canning it in. But when you deal with meat, yes, you want quality. You want to ensure that you're cutting. So whenever you're doing meat as well, there are certain sizes that meat needs to be cut. So if it's an inch, half inch, whatever the recipe calls for, then that's what you do, and you need to follow it very specifically because it can sour and go rancid very quickly.
So it's raw meat.
It is.
You start with raw meat, and you don't like
Typically,
pre-cook
yes.
or-
Part of the preservation process is it is going to be cooked in the liquid more or less and then
Okay.
be preserved. So you will typically always will start out with that. Some recipes may call for you to like par cook something to a certain point and then stop, and then you would finish the cook with that. But again, that's one of those where the University of Georgia is kind of the gold standard of recipes and home food preserving. So if you just were to search National Home Food Preservation, and then they have all of the meats that you can do it the right way, because you could do venison, you could do beef, chicken, poultries. But like for instance, so I actually had a lady call last month, 2 months ago, and had bought ham. Ham was on sale. She bought it, she cooked it, and then realized, well, I'm not going to be able to eat all of this, and then wanted to can it. And so she called and was like, is that going to be an option? And we talked through why it wasn't an option. And then part of it was because it had already been cooked. So with those meats, typically you're going to put them in raw and then you're going to do it. But again, that's based on what the recipe is. And I don't know all the recipes by heart, but it has to be a very specific process how it's done.
Here's one of the things that came to me was like a little bit of a red flag. It was like, so I'm in the grocery, and it's the last day to be able to purchase this. It was like the markdown end of the.
Sure.
So is the quality still where you need to do something like that?
So yeah, so kind of changing directions there. So if you know, whenever you're on the retail side, the use by date or sell by date is an important thing, because it's just, that's when they need to be able to move it. Typically something needs to be, so like with a fresh product, 7 days is really where it's going to be, unless it's vacuum sealed or there's some process with it. But whenever it's those manager special buys, freshness is really on the consumer to identify, because those dates that are put on there, there's no federal guidance that says has to be this date. It's
Really?
We're looking at peak freshness basically. So like an expiration date just is saying on this date it is at the last day of its nutritional peak, and then after this it will begin to lose some of its nutritional value. So for like meat, as long as it looks good, smells good, tastes, well, tastes good after the fact, but feels good, doesn't look slimy, doesn't have a foul odor.
It's not green.
It's not green. The chances are that you still could utilize it. But that's where you need to use a lot of that conviction to identify, is it bad? Because with fresh meat, we know that if it's not vacuum sealed, if it's not frozen, it's only going to be good typically in a refrigerator for a set period of time, which is 5 days, 7 days before it begins to get to the point where it's not going to be safe.
Right.
Because that is one of the big things that when you're canning any item, meat included, if it's already beginning to degrade and start to spoil, you're just adding more issue to the process, because it could continue to spoil in the can, then your product is going to be bad. Okay. So, yeah, canning meat is not one. It's one of those things that's coming back. You go back 100 years, everybody canned meat because it was the way that you'd preserve. It seems very odd to us now, but it is.
And, you know, what I saw a lot of it was that we do this because we have such busy lifestyles that it's so easy to come home and that piece of dinner is done and we can just add it and throw it together. But it still is different for me. And like poultry, I would really be.
I am somebody that does can. I mean, I'm a master home food preserver, and it still is such an odd thought to me to can meat. I would do it, but it just seems very obscure. But you're creating an environment inside of the jar that you're going to keep things at bay to keep it from spoiling. But there are things that you check. You're looking for cloudiness, or it's called turbidity in the jar. You're looking to make sure it's still sealed, that when you're opening it, it's, you know, that sort of thing. So there are check marks that you should be identifying as you go through the process. But, you know, one of the big things with meat, too, that I do get questions on is that you should never can anything that's a starch, because of the sugar content, more or less. So then it spoils as well. So like some people be like, well, I want to, you know, can chicken noodles.
Right.
Not an option. Chicken, yes. Noodles, no.
Okay.
So like potatoes, any kind of rice for the most part, those things, noodles, you never want to put those in any kind of jar and preserve it. So, but that comes along with a lot of questions with meat, because people want to do soups and stews, and you could do part of it and then just add your noodles later, and it would be fine to that point, as long as, again, as it's an approved recipe that isn't one, because there's so much data that shows where one of the pieces is the pH of the item, that how it's canned first, but then that it is at a safe level for canning, because if your pH is too low or high, depending on how you understand the pH scale, 4.6 is where we want to be. If you go higher on the scale, it means it becomes more alkaline or basic. It's not as acidic as it needs to be to keep stuff at bay, basically. So that's where you need to just kind of keep that in mind, because if you start messing with recipes, you could affect the pH, and then it would make it to where it's not safe. We could get into all kinds of details.
It just, you know, it kind of makes you a little nervous until you feel like you're really.
And to kind of, the meat thing has really come back into the market, in my opinion, because there are people out there that do what is called dry canning, and this is my disclaimer of never ever dry can, unless it's something when like that you are, say you have like beans that are dried that you can put in that kind of dry canning. You don't have to process it. It's fine just putting a lid on it and go. Dry canning in the preservation world is where people are taking, say, hamburger, and they will brown it, and then they will literally put it in a jar with no liquid and then process it and put it on a shelf. There's so many things wrong with that, but one of the...
does not even sound good.
No, and it is in the homesteading community. If you were to YouTube this, there's a lot of homestead influencers that engage in this, and it is so unsafe, because one of the things that you need for heat penetration when you're canning is a liquid. So keeping any kind of liquid out of the jar does not allow it to get penetration through to the center, and that's one of those things that we really need when we're preserving. So that's one of the things that's wrong with it. But never, watch it for entertainment value and be terrified, but please don't ever do it, because it is so unsafe.
See, what I see is this ground beef growing these little fuzzy white hairs all over it.
Again, when we talk about history, I had a lady come through my class one time, and she had been canning for, it was like 70 years. She was, I think, in her 90s, and she and I actually had a talk. She's like, it's so weird now, because I remember back in the day, I used to just go down to the basement, and we had a crock full of pork that Daddy had butchered, and we just we rendered the fat and covered it in fat.
That's what my dad talked about.
And we just go down and dip it out and make sure the fat covered it back up and went on. And it was a totally different time. Immune systems were different. It was
in the Depression era, and they looked for different ways to save and all that. But my dad talked about they would fry sausage patties. They'd butcher, make that, fry it up, put it in the crock, pour the grease over it, put a big plate on top of it, and something on top to hold it down. He never ate sausage. I mean, never. Yeah. He said that his whole life that was just. Can you imagine the smell of the old pork grease?
Yeah.
By the time you hit spring.
Yeah. So you can certainly can meat. Meat is one of those that it does. When you even start canning, it freaks a lot of people out because it just seems so odd. Why would we can it when we can freeze it? Mm-hmm. But if you don't have access to a freezer or deep freeze, that might be a viable option for you. So I do have those classes coming up, and once we get closer, or again, if you have questions, reach out. I do speaking of food safety and sanitation, I do have a Serve Safe manager class coming up. That's going to be on the 21st of May. I do have that registration out on our Facebook right now, and I intend to kind of go around and pass some of those flyers out as well, get them hung up. I know I'm working with Alicia at the health department. I got her the flyer as well to make sure she shares that out if she could. I do have some others scheduled for this year. August 25th and then November 16th are going to be the others. And for those that do know what ServSafe is, I do have the online option where you just come in and you just take the exam. You just have to set it up with me.
Okay.
And then looking to next month, one of the things that we're going to do is that we're going to come in on the 19th, and we're going to discuss mental health. It's one of those things that's been really in the news lately in this community especially. We just had a training for what's called QPR. It's question, persuade, and refer. It's a tactic for suicide prevention, and it's a way to allow somebody to have the tools to have control of a situation to help somebody that's in crisis. So it's you're questioning them about their feelings, what's going on. You try and persuade them that to go with you or to find help or to be referred, which is the R, and then you are directing them, to that. And it's the more and more data that we have that comes out about suicide. It's one of those that people don't like talking about it. People don't like talking about mental health because when you break an arm, I can visibly see that my arm is broken. We need to fix it.
Right.
Mental health is something that we can't see. So some people think it's a hoax or, we'll just sleep it off or whatever, and it's not that easy. So that's where we thought it would be a good opportunity to come in and kind of discuss those. Going through the training, and there's a really well-known story that just being aware of the signs where there was a gentleman in San Francisco that took 3 different modes of transportation to get to the Golden Gate Bridge because what he was planning on doing was jumping from the bridge because he was in crisis. He was sobbing, standing at the railing, and a couple stopped him. And he thought in that moment, I'm being saved, more or less. And then when he turned around, they said, can you please take our picture? Totally unaware that he was having a crisis, took their picture, handed it back, and instantly jumped off the bridge. He did survive, and he now kind of shares his story as a testament of, being aware and that sort of thing. But it's something I think is important that, we take some time to kind of chat about, so we're going to do that next month.
And I think sometimes we don't realize that people put on their face to go out the door and do what they do every day, but you don't know behind there what a struggle they're in.
And with that training, that's one of those things that they talk a lot about is just being aware of behaviors. And sometimes it's very large things where things that are said, but sometimes it's just very small, minute changes that just being aware of if it's somebody that's close to you. Because you know what? It's in the training we discussed too is asking somebody if they're okay and being awkward that they are and maybe being upset with you is much better than somebody that is needing help. And that's that one moment that person was waiting on for somebody to say, I'm here. Is everything okay? So So looking forward to that next month. We'll come back and we'll kind of dive a little deeper into that.
Absolutely.
And go from there.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for being in today.
Absolutely.
Contact information for any I think you guys could answer any question anyone would have at this point.
We try. 812-663-8388 is our phone number. You can reach us on Facebook, or we're at the new office at 822 South County Road 200 West at the new large white building. Stop in and see us and check out the building.
Monday through Friday, 8 to 4?
8 to 4.
Absolutely.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you both for being in with us
Absolutely.
today.
Thanks,
you.
guys.